Just hit the button. Now I'm checking to make sure that we're coming on. Okay, we're live.
Okay. Well, as per usual, hello everybody. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We are getting ourselves back on track to, I don't know about you guys, but I took a week off and really took a mental vacation to reset. I hope that you guys took some time to yourselves as well. So with that spirit, we're going to be initiating what is now, when do we start these meetings? Like our 9th meeting of the Sustainable Advisory Group. And tonight, Catherine, do you want to pull up the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah. Tonight, we're going to do something kind of different. With the holiday, we had a meeting on the 17th, I believe was our last meeting. 16th was our last meeting, right before the holiday, where we finished presenting out the initial draft concepts. And then again, if you're like me, you went on a little bit of a holiday with the actual Thanksgiving week, and when we came back, I just don't think that everyone really had a time to get back together with the groups. And we have a couple of updates from Catherine that I think will help us put our arms around more exact, precise next steps that we have to take. And some we had some leading questions we wanted to chat about with the broader team in order to put us on the right path to finish our project and do it in a way that's, transparent with the support of everyone and everything. So for tonight, we're not presenting out those slides. You had no expectation to update them right this second. You're gonna have several more weeks to work on those. So I hope that that's okay with you guys, that you weren't expected to do that, and that we'll have this more of a group conversation tonight. And perhaps we'll end early because again, our agenda is not too long. Catherine, can you go to the second slide?
Yes.
So as per usual, we're going to start with the land acknowledgement, and then there's a couple of updates about sustainable CT that Catherine will share with us. And then we want to go through some presentation details and some logistics about, again, what with the new town council, can we get on the agenda, how we're going to do that, work ourselves backwards, really get ourselves a little bit more feedback, especially after now that you've seen the initial slides presented and how much time that took. And we really want to just kind of talk through how we're going to move forward. And then we'll have next steps in that famous roundtable that we started, and that's it for tonight. So does that work for everybody? Nodding heads, just looking through, everyone's nodding, fantastic. All right, so with that, who wants to do the land acknowledgement for tonight? We have the land acknowledgement even written on the slide, and anyone that would like to take it off the shoulders of Kim, who has done it. Rachel did it once over the last couple weeks, and I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me speak anymore. So they want to raise their hand and read the statement. Catherine, perhaps you can make it a little bigger.
I can do it, if it's okay if I don't put on my video.
I think it's
Lindsay
wonderful.
Whitcomb. I'm sorry for not.
Yeah, Lindsay, I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Finish the food in my mouth really quickly.
I hear you.
We would like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the territory of Indigenous peoples and nations, including, oh boy, I didn't, the Saukyog, Wangogs, and Tunxis, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land and aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay, so moving on to our first topic.
Yeah. So, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if you want it big or small, but so here's a picture of our award. Matt Hart, just to give you an update, Matt Hart attended the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities convention yesterday and was on stage to accept our award. This Sustainable Connecticut plaque hangs in the council chambers, and so we'll update it with the little silver award plaque that was given to us yesterday. So that's pretty exciting.
Can I ask one other quick
yeah.
question? Will the town, I don't know how the town decides what goes in that banner in the center of town where they have like announcements about the town, but is there any way that the banner can celebrate us, like so that the broader town could actually see or say, congratulations, West Hartford, on your silver sustainable CT award or something to that effect? Because again, very few people walk into the town council chamber to see this on the wall. So how are we going to help other people find out about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I can ask. I mean, those banners cost to make. They are hung on town property, so I can ask. I don't think there was a plan to do that, but if that's what we want to do, we can ask for that. I did at one point ask Sustainable Connecticut if they would make banners that could like travel around from town to town and periodically be hung up just to like promote the program in general and say like our community is a sustainable Connecticut community. I didn't hear back on that idea either, but I thought that would be good because at least they'd be free and we could just circulate them between towns periodically.
I also like that.
It'd be great. It'd be great if we could get one, at that sign that you come off of 84, we get the big West Hartford sign. And
Yeah.
it'd be great if, there's some kind of plaque there.
Yeah.
A banner.
Well, I'll put in a request from this group to the mayor and Matt asking whether we can get one made. That'd be great. Yeah.
I can't imagine they're more than a couple $100, but I understand budgets are budgets. So, okay, keep going.
Yeah, so I just included a couple of more items that you guys might be interested in. I included the links. They did finally put a town news article on the town website about our certification. And there was the WeHop article that did come out, and there's the link to it too. If anybody missed those, you can take a look at them. A couple of other things I thought this group might be interested in. I was approached to give feedback, and I think Sustainable Connecticut is actually going to go ahead and unveil this next year a new designation. They're not bringing in a gold certification level in 2022, and they're not adding any more new actions, is what I've been told. But instead, they've decided to unveil kind of a new designation, and it's going to be for a climate leader designation, which is something that West Hartford might be interested in. So the way it's going to work is they're going to have specific actions that contribute to this designation. And if you do so many points in these certain actions, you would be able to claim that designation as a climate leader town. So I don't know exactly how it'll be worked. They might have announced it yesterday. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there'll be more news forthcoming about what that looks like. But that'll be something new in 2022, and climate leader will be their first designation, but there may be more to come in other different categories in the program. So that's kind of exciting. And then the other piece of news I had for you guys was last Friday, or a couple of Fridays ago, this should say November 19th, I presented along with the town of New Milford at Sustainable Connecticut's coffee hours that they hold on Fridays once a month. And we both presented on how to build strong sustainability teams. And so I gave my presentation with the qualifier that West Hartford's model is a work in progress, and that we've been through various iterations of sustainability teams, and we're still trying to figure out how to organize around some of these important issues that towns are going to have to deal with in the future, like climate and like multimodal transportation and complete streets and things like that. So I presented some of the topics that we've been discussing here. Some other things that the town has worked on, how we organized the SAG that you guys have been participating on, and kind of our path through Sustainable Connecticut from joining the program in 2018 to what our future hopes would be. And I think it went over very well. I can share some slides with you, but it was like 2 slides and more of a discussion based thing. But I have made some connections out of that coffee hours to other towns. You know, some who have sustainability commissions, some who have sustainability organizations outside of the town. And it is kind of fascinating to see how different towns approach this in different ways, working with and without the help of their town administration. Okay, that's it. And then this slide is just carryover from last time, in case anybody needs any of the links. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions for me on that stuff?
No, I just think it's really exciting. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So this next section is going to be kind of more of a brainstorm with like a series of questions we have and also some updates. So Catherine shared with me this feedback from the town manager. This is also another slide she's going to share with us. So we had, during our last conversation, if you guys remember, there were some pretty broad recommendations we were making to town council about how to restructure some of the commissions and how to restructure some of the departments in the town. And as I stated last time, that's out of the scope of this particular group. And we made a commitment that some of us will get together to hone in on our recommendation, which we still will do. But in the meantime, since most of the ideas came from Catherine, and Catherine is an employee of the town, she's already started presenting these ideas to Matt directly, independent of the work that we're doing. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Catherine, and you're going to share with us a little bit more about what you heard from Matt and his reaction to that. And the other thing that I want you guys to know is that we were talking a little bit about we have so much that we've collected and presented to each other in the last few weeks that took hours and hours and hours. We are not going to get hours and hours and hours with the town council if we get town council time at all. So we need to figure out how we're either going to get it down to, I don't know if they give us 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. We need to figure out how to get that presentation a lot tighter, or how do we get that information over to them in a way that they're going to actually digest it. So this was the first question that she and I started talking about. The other thing that we were starting to discuss was the idea of how do we even get on the agenda so we can work backwards. Because if we do have these aspirations of sharing this big meaty list of actions and activities for the town to take, then we need to make sure that we're planning accordingly, getting ourselves prepared, and making sure that, again, the town will read it and digest it. So we just started having this conversation. We thought we should open up to you guys. And so that's what we're going to chat about over the next like 20 minutes or longer. So Catherine, I'm going to give this back over to you so you can go through these bullets and slides, and you guys can hear the things that we're starting to think about and wrestle with. And normally we would come with the full recommendation, but in reality, it's good to hear directly about what the challenges are that we're facing, and then we'll go like one by one through the issues and think about how we should best resolve. Does that work? Back to you, Catherine.
Okay, so yeah, to follow on from what Julia said, Catherine Bruns and I actually did have a meeting with Matt Hart, and I was able to ask him some of the questions that were on our minds, especially with the new council coming in, and kind of how we saw this presentation happening, since you guys were kind of at a stage where we were feeling like we wanted to wrap up this phase of the work and move on. So the feedback that we got, and Catherine Bruns, jump in if I miss something, but I think this is kind of to the heart of it. Matt thinks that likely the presentation would not be given to the whole town council. It would likely be given to one of the councils or a couple of the town council standing committees. They did just reorganize and form their standing committees for this new town council that came in. One of the committees, which was in existence previously, was the Facilities and Public Works Committee. They did change that committee's title, so it is now the committee of public works. As you can see here, facilities, public works, and sustainability was added to that committee's scope. The members on that committee, you can see listed here, Ben Wenengrad is still the chair, Carol Anderson, and Mark Zanowitz, or however you pronounce that, he's the minority member, and he was previously a Board of Ed member. So maybe keeping Kim's idea at the forefront, maybe that will help us build some ties with the West Hartford Public Schools, which I also think is really important. Matt said this committee, which used to meet in the morning, is now decided to meet in the evenings. And I don't think we got an answer out of him as to how long we would have for presentation. So I'll check on this, but I'm thinking, it would not be any longer than about half an hour, because their meetings are typically only an hour. Matt did say that the council meetings do have public comment periods, so that if any members of this committee, of this advisory group, wanted to go in front of the town council, we could do so in that public comment period. And he also thought that the budget really wouldn't start tying up the council meetings until about March. So there is December, January, and February. We also asked him kind of what we thought the timing on the climate emergency resolution versus the sustainability advisory group presentation was. And in his mind, it seemed like the climate emergency resolution will likely go first. And that the ball, Henry, this was an update, because I know you and I had a sideline conversation. We didn't really know where that was standing. So Matt did tell Catherine and me that the ball was in his court on that, with some, to make some wording revisions. And I think he also mentioned that if we had a Word version of your resolution, it might be helpful if you could send him that. Andrew, are you?
Like MS Word?
I think he only had a PDF version.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I'm not sure.
Sure.
Have you checked in with him at all on that?
Well, we're about to meet with him.
Oh, awesome.
Actually, it's going to be a couple of weeks. Actually, he had to schedule out a bit, but I can try to send him a document in the interim.
So maybe he's already working on that, but I think he said he needed to make he had some recommendations for revisions to that as well. So
okay.
he was working on it.
Wonderful. I'll follow up on that. Thank you, Catherine.
Catherine Bruns, did I miss anything? I think that kind of gets to.
You covered it.
I know. I think I don't know. Maybe some of us are going to be disappointed that we're not going to be able to present to the whole council, but I think they're trying to streamline the process of bringing presentations through committees, and then just having the council run a little more streamlined and with the approval processes. What I did just, Julia, you mentioned some of these challenges as you were talking earlier, so I just put down just as a starting point, and I know that a lot of the discussion is gonna come back to this, but some of the things you mentioned, I had also just outlined here as a brainstorming slide that I did literally 5 minutes before we got on this phone call. So I did not put much thought into this, but these are some of the themes that I think have been coming up in the last month or so. So we can use this as a starting point if you want, and I can literally type in here if we want to.
Yeah, Catherine, can you clarify if we were to present, I'm assuming we're going to present to this smaller new sustainability label council.
Yep.
If they deem it worthy to go to the broader council, will they flag that, or is there just absolutely no chance that it will ever get up to town council now?
The presentation itself?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's something that we could ask them,
He left that pretty open. There was a door open for that. I think he was trying to set expectations when we met with him, that really the channel was not going to be directly to the town council, but through a committee first.
So
And-
I wonder if it would make sense for us to go to the town council and in the public comment period and give them a heads up that we will be sharing our recommendations with the smaller group or groups, but that, you know, we hope that the council will consider these things as a body. You know, that we're not being sort of shunted off to someplace else to die, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I go back to the resolution that they passed to create this particular task group and what our requirements were in terms of their expectations of us. And I think we can definitely lean into that, Heidi, for what you're recommending. Okay, you asked us to do this work. We're presenting it back through. You've guided us to the committee. If you feel it's worthy, we really encourage you to bring it up to the full town council. So that, I think, is a great idea. Catherine, do you know, will they be revising the charter of the Facilities, Public Works, and Sustainability Committee to reflect this name? Or like, how does that work? Do they just change the name and then that's it?
I don't think there are charters for these committees. I think the town council, at its discretion, is allowed to set up standing committees to help with workflow.
Okay. Great.
That's my understanding.
All right. So what I heard from you is that it'll be in the evening. We don't quite know when. And they meet monthly again? Sorry.
Yes, I don't see any meeting dates listed on their calendar yet.
But
But
they
I think,
will
yep, but I
meet
I
monthly.
think usually it's monthly. Yep. And I think, you know, when we're ready, we could put in a request. I don't think to get on a committee's meeting, it requires, you know, it's not as onerous a process as getting on the town council agenda.
Okay.
But we may want to, you know, alert Ben Winograd, the chair,
Right.
that at
Which
some
you
point.
recommended that I do, and I will do that as an action item. Sorry, go ahead.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, yeah, so I'll alert Ben when we're ready. But okay, so this is what we know now. Thoughts, reactions to what Catherine has just shared. I'm trying to watch the chat as well. Are you guys disappointed? Are you okay with this? I mean, it seems to be the path that they're giving us. Like, what are your reactions?
I'm not surprised. I think they're very busy, have a lot of items on their agenda. This is just one of many. And I've always been concerned that our list is so long that they would get overwhelmed with it. And so it actually might be, you know, it's now kind of forcing us to say, okay, maybe we need to pick we have our top 10 or 11. Now we got to go, what are our real top 3? And which will be tough, but and kind of focus on that but I think ultimately it will help them to kind of say, here's like 2, 3, 4 things that are like maybe the town should really be focusing on now. And here's the wish list for later on.
Yeah, Michael, I think you're reading my mind as I was looking through all these as well. So good to hear we're on the same page. Any other comments before we?
I have a question, I guess.
Yeah.
If the budget is going to start in March, does that mean we're going to want to be on before the budget starts?
I'm assuming if we have any asks in our list that have budget priority, we would want to be in there before that budget.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of constrains our timeline a little bit, which is fine.
And if you work backward from that, you want at least, I don't know, Catherine, are they doing budget proposals right now? Like, when does the budget actually start to get underway? I mean, I'm assuming February would be the latest that they could potentially slide in, but you may even need to go back to January.
Yeah, the budget is being formed right now. The budget takes several months to put together. But, people are working on it currently. Yep.
And when is the last revision? When is the last time someone can slip something into the budget?
I have no idea.
Would you mind investigating that a little bit? Because that might help with our timeline too, if we do have any budget asks. Otherwise, we might need to start peppering those in now before the end of the month and like preparing folks like, hey, really think this has to be in the budget.
Sure.
Does
All
any,
right.
can I ask a quick budget question?
Of course.
Does the town have any new sources of revenue for their budget? Like as in COVID relief money or anything like that, that is extra over what they would normally have?
I don't know the answer to, I assume they do. Yes, we have the ARPA funds and we have some other monies as, I assume we do. I don't know how much or what.
Yeah,
I just
so
got, I just got my new assessment.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
a,
just wondering because if the town doesn't have a windfall of some kind, then anything that we ask for that has a price tag is probably something for the following year. It's probably, I'm just being a little cynical here. It might be too late to try to get into the budget for next year.
I don't think you're being cynical at all, Ted. I think you're setting a realistic expectations for this group.
Yeah.
And that could also really help us with prioritization, like Michael was just saying, like what really could happen for free or little no money. That could be the stuff that gets done in 2022, and anything that's a bigger lift, even if it's considered low hanging fruit in our estimate, maybe that's for 2023's budget.
Can I have a question? I have another question on the budget. When does the budget run? I know our budget goes through June 30th. So this must be on a little bit of a different cycle.
no, the budget is July 1st to June 30th. Yep.
Okay.
Has to get approved in the spring, so it can go.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just.
It'll take them a little bit of time. Okay. Logistics.
It seems like it would be helpful if we could understand what ARPA money or other windfalls are lying around. I wonder how we could get more information about how much money is hanging out. And that could also help us inform our decisions.
It absolutely could.
Gonna
tell us.
Did I send around to this group? There was an article in
You did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, about how the $37 million was being spent. I think most of that money has been spoken for. A while back, directors were asked to submit projects and things for that money, and but I think the WeHeart article did a good job of outlining where some of that was going to. For example, $300,000 is going to electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and a couple of $1 million is going to rebuild Eisenhower Pool, and some other things. I can't remember what was outlined in that article.
But we can and should take a look at the article again, because EV infrastructure, it very well falls in the realm of some of the things that we're highlighting too. So we could say you've already got money for this. This is already being, allocated, and so that could be the other tactic we take that Rachel's pointing out. That so we just have to look for that article one more time and take a look at it, and I can find it either before.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there are people working on some of these initiatives already.
Yeah, absolutely. A good question though, Rachel. Thank you.
And I don't know what the other sources are. Yeah, it's not, I can ask, or we can invite someone in who is probably more expertise in that area than us. And I don't know when the draft budget would be put out, but obviously all of that would be outlined in there as well.
What I think I'm hearing is that we don't really need to worry about this upcoming budget, but we should take a look at any additional funds that are coming in through ARPA that could also align with the things that we're recommending, and just remind them, hey, you're getting budget for this and it's aligned with this particular thing that we've observed. Make sure that you highlight and focus on that. And then for, any other additional things that could have a budget price tag. I don't think this group was asked to put together a budget or a budget request. So I think that just kind of being able to draw the parallels would probably be good enough for the next year. And unless somebody has a very specific ask of the town that would be reasonable, perhaps we'll keep the expectation of any actual fund requests to another year later for the next iteration of this group to figure out as well.
Let me just ask one more question, Julia, and I think we answered this previously, and I apologize. How does this dovetail with the Sustainable Connecticut Match Fund as far as town budget? So there's a match fund.
Separate.
Can you just jog our memory on that?
Yeah, so the match fund, like Catherine has on here, it works like a GoFundMe. So it's a dollar for dollar match. You have to come up with some funds for it, and then Sustainable CT will match that. But when Catherine, perhaps you can explain it better. I don't think it's like you personally, Rachel, have to come up with the funds, right, Catherine?
No, individuals can be donors. So the Sustainable Connecticut Match Fund is project-based. You have to have a project idea. It's not for staff or things like that. And it works like a GoFundMe site. If you go to this link, you can actually check out some of the projects that are being funded right now. For example, a perfect example might be to fund a tree canopy study for the town, right? And you would say, this is the project we want to do. It needs a sponsor. That sponsor does not have to be the town. It can be an organization, or it can be any individual in the town of West Hartford. Because West Hartford is registered with Sustainable Connecticut, not because we're certified, we're just registered, we are able to tap into this fund. So you have to have a minimum known number of donors to your project. I forget what that number is now. It's raised it. I think it's maybe 25. The idea is that this is crowdfunding. So people in your community want to fund a particular project, and they'll donate $5, $10, $25, $10,000, whatever it is. Sustainable Connecticut will match it dollar for dollar up to a certain amount. I think the max is $7,500 or something like that. But your project has to, so it's really for small projects. One of those donors could be the town. So if the town has funds or applies for a grant that doesn't fully cover a project cost, we could use that and get it matched. But again, there's no hard, fast rule, but the intent is for this to fund things that are not funded in the budget. So if you have budget money already allocated for something, it's really not to be done under a match fund project. Again, if you have a project idea, the easiest way to get it started is call Abe at Sustainable Connecticut, have a little conversation about how your project fits, whether it's a good project, and he's really nice and easy to work with, and he would get you started. But that is something, a commission can take on, a group, the Sustainable Advisory Group, like I said, a nonprofit, a student, a school, anybody.
Thanks for that refresher, Catherine, and a great question, Rachel, because we are trying to think about how we're going to make some of these things a reality, and to help with prioritization. that could really help out.
Lighting, like for example, LED lighting at the Little League. We played around with the idea of that one year. Could the Little League do a fundraiser to pay for new LED lighting at the ball fields?
So to go back to one of the bigger condensing presentation conversation, as we're already starting down this pathway. When you think about the number of priorities that we have, and then you think about the number of incredible suggestions that were made, I would not recommend that we like I want to make sure that whatever we deliver to town council, we have a compendium, like something that goes with the presentation that has all the research, all the details, all the ideas in it, everything packaged together. It could be a long, paper style or whatever, but I don't want to lose ideas. So I think that that's something that has to be done as we cull down the list. I think it's very important for us to like collect that into a separate document so that lives somewhere and we don't lose that the work that has already been done. But I do have a recommendation for us to go to the next phase of slimming down the list. And that is to pick your top one thing you would need the town to do. And then to go back to Michael's point, even if we were to do one top emergency short-term item, like what's your lowest hanging fruit, most important step that the town could take, we still have 10 strong priorities, which would still give us 10 major ideas. Now 10 ideas could be some might consider 10 ideas still too many ideas, or it could be the perfect right amount. So I want to get your thoughts on what if we present one idea per priority to the town, just to help with culling the list down for presentation's sake and to speed along through the ideas when we're going to be asked to shorten this down to 30 minutes and we took 4.5 hours the other nights. What do you guys think about that? And again, remember, I'm not saying we should negate any of the other ideas or say that they should go away. I'm saying we collect those ideas into something that's longer for the people who have the patience and the interest and the willingness to read through the longer list and to give to the next group to shepherd through. Luciana, I see you saying yes.
I think it's a good idea.
Ed says yes.
I actually am not loving it. I think that it would be appropriate for us to go to them and say that we have recommendations in these categories.
Oh,
I think that if we go to them saying we have one strong recommendation in 10 different categories, and we have these other things that we think are important, they will hear we've got 1 in 10 categories, and it will get whittled down to 3 total.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair point, Heidi. I think the challenge is we're wrestling with people's attention spans and what the town would really do. But I agree with you that we should definitely present it as priorities. And among those slides, I guess is what I was saying, you would say, okay, for this priority, here's the top first recommendation, the top thing that we would say you need to do. And then we'd have the other ones. But as we go through the presentation, we'd only highlight one. We wouldn't talk about all 5 or 6 or 8. Like all 5 or 6 could be on the slide, but we only highlight one for the presentation's sake.
So I'm with Heidi on this, and Julie, I get your point, but I still think one priority in 10 categories still is a lot. And I like the idea of making sure to name these categories, but I know that like I would keep it to 3. I mean, like the famous 3. I know that like in some of the groups I participated in, we identified some issues, but they're really big issues. Like the next step for many of those areas would be that, that study, kind of like that tree canopy study, that's not something I know these guys will be so overwhelmed. Right. And I know that there are projects out there that were put on the table that are important and ready to execute. And so I would really keep it to much. I am so like, I don't know if you guys, I mean, I know who Mark Zdanowitz is, Carol Blanks, who is Open Winograd. I mean, I've presented in front of these guys and it, not the 3 together but in different forms. And it's, I kind of thought the main goal again was to demonstrate how we've got all of these issues. We're, I don't know how much information we want to provide on what other towns are doing. I don't know, maybe Catherine knows more, like, is that something that turns these guys off right away? But maybe if we, position it in a way that is motivating rather than, makes them, puts them in a bad spot. But, we are just looking to bring attention to all these issues. It's almost like that's the biggest, we want their attention. We want them to give a care about sustainability.
Can I just clarify, Kim, just to make sure that I understand what you're saying versus again, and then Heidi, I want to clarify what your point was, because I think actually Heidi said the opposite of what you said, Kim. And then I actually think that, so Kim, did you say that you think we should get it down to 3 things?
No, I'm sorry. Well, I mean, I want to identify these categories.
Right.
So yeah, and then that's right. I took my idea then from there. If we must present like specific projects in more as a, hey, so for example, we've got some groups working on projects in our town right now, and they are ready to move on these with just a little time and a little attention and a little money, and we can roll it out. And these are just some examples, but here's our long list of categories. Here are some great examples from those categories of projects that people are ready to roll on. We want your time, we want your attention, and your money.
So for lack of a better term,
and a group and a sustainability task force to keep momentum going on these, these types of projects that nonprofits, that individuals in our town are working on, that just don't always know who to connect with.
Okay, so just to summarize, and again, you can tell me if I'm wrong for the broader team. What I'm hearing you say is to have us present out, of course, the 10 categories that we've had, and then highlight the ones that, for lack of a better term, because I can't think of one, are shovel ready, essentially, like that are ready to go. Of the ones that have been recommended, here are the ones that are immediate, they're ready to go, they just need a little bit of care and attention, and like you said, potentially little money, or maybe not even money. And then Heidi, what you were saying is you didn't like the idea of presenting one of the 10 because you think they'll hear the word one and then they'll think they only have to do one thing and won't follow along and do the rest of the longer list. Is that correct? Am I categorizing both of what you both just expressed appropriately?
You got what I said correctly. Yes.
Great. So I do think, Kim, that was a little different than what you said, but I do think I'm hearing from both of you that.
It's fine. Yeah. I mean, Heidi, my apologies. I used your words as a jumping off point, but yes.
Really fine. Just making sure that I understand. Okay.
I'm happy to be inspirational, Kim.
Glad we're all working together so nicely. Okay, so
I wonder if one way to show the council or committee, whoever we're presenting to, is to kind of give them an observation and then the recommendation. For example, like, I'm thinking of a slide and you could have one on one side and one on the other.
Hold on. Are we taking notes on this, just out of curiosity?
No, but it's being recorded.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to start frantically writing down.
No, it's being recorded.
That's fine. I still have to write things. That's okay.
Okay. So, and what I'm just envisioning in my head, because I'm kind of visual, is if we use this example of, I don't know why I keep coming back to the tree canopy study, but the observation is that there is broad support both within the town with Helen Rubino Turco in leisure services and outside the town with some of the Friends Parks groups and with Ted Gerner's tree project and with the sustainable. There's broad support for this initiative. So that's the observation is, but yet for 2 years it hasn't been done, so that's kind of the observation. And then the recommendation is for the council to authorize the Conservation and Environment Commission, a commission that's already there, or authorize someone to do it. Like, say, get this done. They have people out there, to Kim's point, ready and willing to do it. Whether they fund it, whether it's through a community match fund, but say this has to be done. I think, is that what we're asking for? Or is that an example of a project which we don't even need the council's authorization on, and the next iteration of this group could just decide to do?
Not a legal question that we don't have the answer
I'm not sure what the answer is, but I want our town council to be thinking about these things all the time. I want them to be wanting information. I want them to come to us, people like us, asking for information instead of the opposite. We're trying to turn the ship around, and we're like not even, I think based on, I'm just going based on the last election, no matter what your political affiliation, like no one's talking about environment and sustainability. That's not true. I mean, I saw it, but I mean, it's like such a small percentage. And so I want them, I want them thinking about it. I don't know if that, if good question, Catherine, but.
I kind of think we're going to come back to the point where there needs to be a single top priority per category, and yet they also need to hear our long-term wants and wishes. They need to see it all, but I think we are going to have to prioritize in some way, shape, or form. And I mean, some of the things are going to require money. Some of the things are going to require time, like manpower from the town, and some of the things just require their cooperation. So it is kind of hard to, it's hard to categorize and narrow it down, but I think we kind of have to go back to those original 10 topics that we discussed in that meeting, I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings ago. That's just my 2 cents.
Ted,
We've got 30 minutes.
Maybe we take both what you're saying, Kim, and what you're saying, Ted. We stick with the 10 things, but those 10 things are the things that we need the town's help with, like most. Like we need their budget, we need their staff, whatever. And then we also on that slide present things that we are going to be also doing in tree canopy group or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
but that we're kind of rolling on our own because we've got the resources. But like the one that we're going to pick is the one that really we need, that we can't accomplish on our own. Maybe that's how we sort those as we present or as we prepare our presentation.
There are a lot of things that we really don't need the town's help with, but narrow it down to the things that we absolutely do need their help with.
So this is great. Mary made a point in the comments. I wonder if each point should have a list of state and local partners, but maybe we could put that into a larger document. Mary, I'm kind of paraphrasing the 2 comments you put together because it seems like you backtracked on one of the things you said. Do you want to share your thoughts, or is that covering your comment?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that one thing I've been hearing quite a bit of in this discussion is that, oh, such and such group already exists and they've been working on this, and this other group or university, or I think that someone at some point mentioned partnering with someone to do a study. And plus, so there's a lot of groups that are working on these things. There are a lot of groups that are organized around them that have sort of some mobilization behind them. And I think that that's something that some of us know. I mean, some of it's news to me. But one thing that comes up over and over again is that the town council doesn't necessarily know those things because they're focused on so many topics. And I think another thing that has come up in some of these meetings before is that they don't necessarily know who to go for information. And so I think that if we could just have this sort of nice, very kind list of, hey, here are some experts that exist in the state of Connecticut that you could contact. Here are some groups that are already formed in Metro Hartford working on these issues that you could contact or maybe partner with or maybe go after grants with. I think that one way to sort of pivot away from this discussion of do we have the capacity within West Hartford to do it, do we have the funding within West Hartford to do it, is to suggest nicely to the town that they really rethink about what they mean by capacity and funding by looking outside the town to all of the resources that exist in the state. And we could just list that.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. So as I'm hearing you guys chat, one of the things I'm thinking through is I'm already thinking about like how to call down the list and what we're going to need to do for our next, getting ready for our next meeting. I'm going to keep coming back down to is like maybe the themes are pretty simple. It's this, what do we need? What do we observe? What are our overall gaps? That analysis that we came up with, make sure that's in the presentation. Like we did this work. Here's the big bulk of it. This is something we would say, okay, we've done this. This is what we found out. among that is the recommendation to modify the way the town council or the town commissions are structured and like getting things through the town. But realistically, this is a presentation that we go back to the town and say, what do we need from the town? So this is what the town wants. This is us as residents, what we are saying we want the most. And then what do we want from the town specifically? And then you can prioritize, okay, so for this project, for lack of a better term, again, whatever shovel ready, these things are ready to go. All that's missing is a permit. All that's missing is approval. All that's missing, so think about as you go back through your recommendations, I think we need to look at it from the lens of what does the town need to do to get us through to the next step. And that should help prioritize down what actually needs to get asked of the town and presented to the town specifically in this conversation. And then what I also have is the major asks that we have is approval for the things that are shovel ready. I keep using this word, but one of you, I think Ted may have mentioned it, was we either need money, cooperation, or manpower. So as you go back to your slide, maybe create a separate table for yourself that says this one needs money, this one needs manpower, this one needs cooperation, this one needs full approval from the town council, like really explicitly explaining what do you, of those categories, what do you need from the town? That could give us another way to present this to them separately and independent after the meeting, in a table, something very clear. We asked for this, we need this. And then we are looking for the approval for those immediate things that they can approve immediately, and approval for what I'm calling SAG V2, which is whatever the future iteration of this project is. So the major ask is we need approval to keep working on this stuff, and we need you to approve the things that are basically out ready to go out the door that you've been kind of dragging your feet on, but you didn't know you were dragging your feet on. Or maybe they did. How does that sound? It's a lot of stuff. So what do you guys think about that?
Julia, this is Kathy Stipes. I guess my question is, are we talking about priorities, or are we talking about easiest attainable? Or are we talking about both?
I think there's a little bit of both going on. But I think, Kathy, you would want to look at this from, okay, this is urgent and important, that sort of framework of this is urgent and important, it needs to be done. And there's some things that need to be done. It goes back to this conversation of some things the town just needs to do because it's important for the town to do it, but it's longer term. They've got to start working on it now. And it won't go away if they don't start working on it, right? So there's still some overall both prioritization and what needs to be done immediately. But I think that the clearer we can be with the folks on town council to say, you're standing in the way of this particular next step that's really important, give us approval so we can move the ball on this one a little bit. But realistically, it's part of this bigger picture request that we have. We're trying to always bring them back to the bigger picture. We're not just asking about you did this one thing and then we're done with you, to go back to Heidi's point. I don't want them leaving thinking, well, we did the 10 things and now we're good. We never have to talk about sustainability.
Well, I think if you have urgent and important, and then you have, as Ted said, they either need money, resources, or just
manpower,
get out of the way or whatever.
Yeah.
I just think that structure seems like it makes sense. It's logical. Okay, here's the most important things you need to do. Here's what's required to make them happen. Now we're in a conversation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The important could be like the broad category. This is the broad, big picture important with regard to food waste. And then the urgent is like, maybe that's exactly how you sort out that headline. The broad is the important and you kind of say the vision, and then the urgent is the ask.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, and go back to kind of the beginning of this conversation, it's the keep it simple method.
Exactly.
This is like one line, this is like a bullet point. This is, and I realize it's much more, and you can say, look, there's much more behind all of this. Here's your bullet point, because they're going to remember a simple slide. They're not, if we give them, even what we think is not a lot,
right,
it's going to be a lot, and they're just not going to have the time, and it's going to get glazed over. I'd rather do as simple as possible. Go back, say, with our major points, but I like that, urgent, et cetera, that I think that's a great way.
And I think, Michael, what you're pointing out leads back to the final request, which is, this is so much, we're not expecting you to become experts on all of this, but we need to have a liaison from the town. We need a formal person who works on these issues to make sure this doesn't get dropped. And we need a second version of this to keep working on this so it doesn't get dropped. So I think that that continues to build that argument as well. We're going to toss a whole bunch of really important ideas at you. We understand that you're not going to take it all in. So who's going to carry this water forward? Hey, town council, better make sure you assign it, or we're just going to keep knocking on the door, or, you know, it just, we're not going away.
If this is the way that we choose to start, like having a slide for each of these project areas, that is fine. But I would just ask that we evaluate, we have a chance to reevaluate, you know, and I'm sure we will at different points, you know, of the draft, because I have, again, you know, being in this kind of setting, at least at the Board of Ed, and see like these 10 categories, even a very, very simple slide for each of these 10 categories, in my opinion, is they're going to glaze over around slide number 3 or so. And it's probably going to be too much. By all means, I could be wrong.
It goes back to the keep it simple, and simplicity is, what is that? What is that? Is it an adage? I don't know what the phrase is, but you know, I'm sorry, I wrote you a long letter. If I had more time, I'd write you a short letter. Have you heard of that before? You guys ever heard that phrase?
Yeah.
So that's the idea that, like, you know, short, concise actually takes several times longer to get to that point. It's much easier to be loquacious. It's much easier to just keep expanding. It's very difficult to be short and concise. And to your point, Cam, people can only absorb so much in one session before they're going to check out. So we want to make sure we're setting this up appropriately.
See, our food, like one of the groups I'm in, the food systems group, like that alone, we could take one narrow slice of that and take an hour. So I just point that out, like it doesn't, like, I'm worried about a simple slide being completely inauthentic and
I think that
presenting the wrong picture. But by all means, let's get started, and maybe it can be done.
I think the point of presenting it is to make sure that they continue to authorize further work on this. Really, that's the major ask that we need to walk away with.
And I tread lightly on this next thing I say, because I understand it's, you know, everyone has priorities, but I forget who said that there's, you know, earlier on, there's other groups kind of tackling some of these issues. So equity, diversity, and inclusion. I mean, the schools have an equity, diversity, inclusion staff member. Like, do we kind of say, well, can we kind of further simplify saying there are already areas where these are part of our whole umbrella and fall under the sustainability, because CT Sustainability has said it falls under the umbrella, but you're addressing these things and these are important and we think these are important. Here are the things that, you know, that maybe aren't necessarily being addressed in a specific way by the town. And so we got to get your eyeballs on these, because you are doing these other things. And it doesn't mean they're doing enough, but at least there's something being done.
I hear what you're saying, Michael. I also want to go back to something that was pointed out at the last meeting. I don't know if you were there. Catherine mentioned, you know, we do have such meaty, great, incredible. You guys have done a lot of really great thinking about all of the different priority areas and have some incredible suggestions. Some of the best actors to be paired with in the town are not this town council or this town committee. They're going to be the commissioners, or they're going to be others that we want to present out to. So simultaneous to us trying to pursue this meeting with the council, what do you guys think about making sure, Kim, if you need an hour with the group that might end up working on, you know, food system and, you know, waste issues with Catherine and whatever commission might have that authority, we would also set up an hour to go through methodically. Like, I think we need a multiple you know, where we go out and we take those slides and you guys talk more at length and you look for opportunities to keep those conversations alive separately. But for the council meeting, I think simplifying is perfectly reasonable to do as long as we're continuing to push in other venues. What do you guys think about that? Like, do you want audiences with other folks? And if so, do you want them before we do this presentation to build momentum? That adds to our timeline, so just throwing it out there, or makes
It might help us understand better what's already going. I feel like as I listen to this, like I feel personally, we don't have quite a total grasp of what's already happening, where's the funding. I think it might be good preparation before we then go to council if we've done these kind of I think that's a great point.
Yeah, it just takes a long time. We were talking about it. I was like, oh no, we won't be ready by February. We're never going to be ready. That could take a year. So,
One thing about this whole, go ahead.
I very briefly, I think one thing that we really want from the council is for the council to own this priority as a priority for the town and to vote on it, to, to publicly stand behind it so that they can be held accountable in making sure that it happens. And, the actual execution, they're not going to do. And the next iteration of this group maybe, thinking about how the implementation happens. But I think we want the council to commit to publicly commit to the importance of sustainability.
agreed. That's my major takeaway would be we get their buy-in on continual work to keep doing this, and that will get approval to actually present it to the broader town council, especially because we're getting relegated to a committee at this point. So, Catherine, do you know if that committee has authority to give us permission to continue, or will that have to go up to town council?
That I would think would have to be passed by town council. Yes.
So then from the subcommittee, what are we asking? We're asking for them to make a recommendation to town council that this work continues, because look at all these incredible things we've done, and look at our list, and look at the people and the passion, and get, like explaining to them, like, this is a lot of work that has to be done, and you cannot just walk away from it. It's very important to the town, and it's very important to our future success. Other ideas how we should approach this? And remember, mentally, I think we should be trying to get on an agenda by between January and February. So we're 6 to 8 weeks away.
So can I just ask for my understanding? So we're going to go back with our groups.
Yes.
And we're going to shorten our presentation and just pick the one action item or the one want that we want.
You don't have to pick one. What you're gonna do is take a look at your list, and you're gonna look at what's urgent and important, and you're gonna look at also what you're gonna do this sort of other table exercise of what requires money, what requires their cooperation, what requires manpower. Like, that's what you're gonna do. And then of those, for the actual presentation, you might want to recommend that the person giving the presentation is going to highlight one or the top one or two ideas.
Right. Oh, okay. Yep.
And could someone kind of build I assume you're doing this, but build a template?
Yeah, we'll need a template.
And we just
like I did last time.
We're filling in the blanks, basically. It's like Mad Libs, where you fill in the blank.
I will make another template, yes, from the template we had, yes. And I don't want you to delete any of your ideas. So please remember, that's not the goal here. The goal, we'll collect all the ideas, make sure they definitely end up in more than one document that gets delivered to town council, even though I can almost guarantee they'll never read it. So, but it'll be there for the next sustainability advisory group.
And where applicable, we want to add in if that work is already underway, or if it's being done by another town in the region.
If you have that knowledge, I think that could be helpful, but I don't think it's required, because it might be really difficult to find out if another town is doing that. But yes, I'll add that to the template. Okay, so then the other reactions to like how we're thinking of culling this down a little bit further, the next iteration. You guys okay with this approach? I only see 4 people at a time, so let me flip through. Yes, heads nodding. Kim, you look like you're a little frustrated, or maybe you're looking at something else. I'm sorry. Do you need to anything else to say?
No, well, I actually was just thinking about one thing, and we don't need to, this might have a short answer, but one thing I keep thinking of is when Matt Hart presented, he kept talking about the need for education.
Yes.
And I don't think on that topic, did we add something like that? Because I don't think that's one thing that could be addressed individually in each of our silos. I think, education, that's like, if there was one thing that I think would really be called for and so impactful and important for our town. And I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's all through maybe it's our PR person, whoever that is. I know you guys have highlighted her role before, but or getting them to hire some, I don't know. I don't think we've addressed it here. And I just thought of that. And we don't need to start talking about it, but I hope that conversation can be had somewhere offline.
It's a good reminder. His request specifically was that he wanted us to be like communications champions to help with education around the town. So yes, there's a communications component that needs to be factored in. The town does need to figure out how to message some of what it's doing, and then also message how to get involved, even if it's something outside the town. But we can take that offline, and yes, it's going to be part of the overall presentation.
And I just understood it to be more like, this is what sustainability is, and this is what a sustainable town looks like, and these are how pieces of your life can fit together and the role you can play, as a sustainable household and person, and, very, very basic things. That's what I took from him.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, we can definitely come back around to that, but I like that idea. I think the library
Is this what you mean? Would this be one of the recommendations, Kim? Add a sustainability section to the town website?
Oh, that would be like right now, like even if people don't go to it much, I would love to see a sustainability section. Something so simple like that, like, hey, check out our sustainability, page. Or I know we have our Facebook, right? The Town of West Hartford, the sustainability Facebook page.
No, that's not.
Save West Hartford's not run.
Yeah. That's not part of the town. That's just something that was set up by the Clean Energy Commission. And I seem to be the only one who posts anything on it these days. Yeah, it's not really, I don't really know what it's for.
So this would be a page like in Middletown, if you go look on their public works page, they, have lots of resources for how to have a pesticide-free lawn. That kind of information would be right there.
Yeah, the town would have to hire somebody or, contract with somebody to do that. But fair enough. It's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I mean, just as someone who has got lots of projects, going on around town and pulls in a ton of people and is constantly trying to connect people and persuade, that is actually might be the thing from my perspective. I don't, and chime in someone, please, but that could be the thing that starts to steer, change course.
So are there no organizations who have websites like that in West Hartford? Again, this idea that maybe this is being done somewhere else in the town, and that the town should not be duplicating something that's being done. I do know that in some other towns like Fairfield and Westport, who I talked to the other day, they have outside organizations who do that.
So we, like a group that I'm a part of, Grassroots West Hartford, we provide a ton of information, but then they could refer to our page on that page. They could refer to Blue Earth composting for research. I think they might somewhere, I don't know, they could also like put the page, where the reporting page, Public Works added, where they talk about what they spray and where on municipal properties, stuff like that could all be centralized or repeated there. It doesn't need to be, I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to design it, but like basic raw education, we just like look at our landscape as a citizen in West Hartford. How often I'm a part of a ton of organizations. I don't get any local news about, you know, how to be more sustainable. I mean, that's not true. I'm sure there are small examples, but it's, you know, being represented, you know, education provided by the town of West Hartford tells me this town takes this seriously. That's one way.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I do know the library has a series. I do know the Sierra Club locally does a lot of work. I know your group does a lot of work, and you're right. The town certainly could help boost some of the traffic to some of the other organizations doing great work to build on Catherine's point.
But and also, you know, I put stuff out there all the time. I mean, if anyone has suggestions on how I can broaden that audience, I put stuff on the Sustainable West Hartford Facebook
Catherine
page.
nailed everybody a how to recycle guide.
Yes, there's a ton of information.
So I think whether we could put more information on the town website, that's something that I would love to look into, and I'll look into that. If we can have a page and then have this group make a recommendation of what should be the links that are on that page, or what would be the, you know, to your point, you know, if you want to be sustainable with your yard use or your food or whatever it is that you're doing commuting, there is no central place that I know of to look it all up. I put stuff out there all the time, but you know, it's whether you're looking.
And the information is there. It's just that sense of it being like pervasive, you know, it's like, oh, everybody must be doing it. Maybe I should too.
It would be amazing, because I always have, I'd like, wait, can I do this? Wait, and then of course I'm like, I'll just call Catherine and she'll tell me. But it would be great to like go to one place, like I know, like if I have my questions, again, it's the keep it simple method. And for those who aren't as concerned as perhaps this group, you got to keep it simple for them, that they have an easy way to do it rather than having to search around. Because if you have to search around and figure it out, I got something else to do.
I think this could go into like a final slide of like sort of, I want to say miscellaneous, but like a kind of other gaps that we've observed, you know, like just a final gaps that don't fit tightly into our 10 priorities or whatever it is. I do think that this one is a good one that could go under there. Like, here's just some ideas, you know, we're just giving you some suggestions.
If anyone has specific recommendations, if you're online right now and want to go to the town's West Hartford website, like where you would put that, under for residents, under for businesses, under government, where would you add that page?
They should all lead back to that central page, and they should be on the home page announcing our sustainable CT. How to be
Would
more
it be under resident? I'm looking at it right now. I mean, we have the Public Works site, and then in there you can find some of that information, but I agree it's scattered about.
I'm on chapter 2 now.
Hey guys,
some people just think about where you would put it if you wanted to go. Where would it go? Because I've had that come up before in terms of energy stuff. Where would people go to look for that stuff?
Yeah, so Catherine, you can actually do studies and actually find out like where, from a user experience perspective, where people are more likely to click. They're not that much money. They are easy to program, and you basically can watch people play with your website and try to figure out what they're naturally doing. And that might be something to take offline as another suggestion. But I'm gonna get us back on track so we can possibly end by 8, because I know people have already dedicated a lot of time to this evening. Are you guys okay with those who want to keep working on communications issues? Maybe reach out to
me.
Reach out to Catherine. Yeah. Catherine Bruns.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the last big bucket that we were talking about the other day is there is a group, if you guys recall, that we put into our sheets when we were separating ourselves into the things you were interested in, that volunteered to beautify, edit, slim down the presentation so it all was in the same voice. And these people aren't necessarily the people who are going to give the presentation to the town committee. So what we also need is 2 things that we need to spend the last 12 minutes on. Sorry for the noise outside my window. The first thing is, to those who offered to help cool down the presentation, I think they're going to need to work very closely with those who present. And if I am going to dare say this out loud, I don't think it makes sense for 15 people to give a presentation to one committee. or 20 people or 30 people. I think we're going to need to pick a couple of presenters that are going to give this presentation on behalf of our entire group. And I don't think there should be more than possibly, depending if it's 30 minutes, I think you could max out at 3, but I really think there should probably be 2 max presenters, and those 2 presenters need to work with that committee to the committee that's going to really like hone down the presentation so that the voice works out for the folks who are actually presenting. So I wanted to spend a few minutes discussing if anyone has strong feelings about being that presenter, so we can figure out who our presenter will be eventually and start to have that conversation.
I'm assuming you should be one of them.
I am not. I am not assuming that.
I think that's great.
I second that.
I think that's a great idea.
You for your votes of confidence. Does anyone else want to?
And Catherine and Julia seem like the
I do not want to present at all.
I think Catherine being a staff member is probably not the best method, but I do think Catherine has been both Catherines have been incredibly valuable resources for us to participate as our staff liaisons on this group.
This might be slightly provocative, and I apologize if it offends anyone, but could we have someone who is a non-white person be the other presenter? Is that a possibility here?
We absolutely can. Like I said, I didn't nominate myself for this. Other people are more than welcome to do it. So
I'm comfortable with you being nominated. I'm not like that. That is not what I'm saying.
Heidi. No, that's not what you said. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't want to put anyone on the spot, and I don't want to pull it out. But I really think if anybody else has any interest. Fortunately, this really kind of, I think, based on some lack of interest, I think that might be a nomination for Luciana. I don't really know if there's anyone else fits that description. And Luciana, do you have any interest in presenting?
I don't think I am well spoken. Sorry.
I think you are well spoken, but if you are interested, that is sort of unfortunately puts us in a.
I can help you guys, but I think somebody else would deliver the message much clearer than I.
You are under no pressure to do anything. Don't worry.
No, thank you.
It would be okay if just one person presented, no?
I mean, it would be okay, but I would really like someone else to. Let's put it this way: I don't want to be the only presenter. I don't want to be the only presenter.
Julia, I don't fancy myself to be a super effective speaker, but I certainly don't want you to have to go up. So I would be willing to go up and present with you. So if we could do like a 90-10 split, that would be amazing. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know if I have the time at this moment to be working closely for them in terms of the tone and the voice of the presentation, but we can carve out time. I mean, I'm not going to make you go up there by yourself. And I also think that tag teaming is a good idea as well. So I will wear normal adult clothes and not house clothes, and it will be wonderful.
We're going to still be virtual, so don't worry.
Okay.
You have to wear pants if that's the case. Just don't get up. Yes, Catherine.
So, I mean, I said that I didn't want to present. If it helps, one thing that I can do is do more of an introduction. I don't think I'm that good of persuasive speaker, and again, as staff, I don't think it's right for me to present the recommendations. But if you want me to help in the beginning, with some of the sustainable Connecticut stuff, because I think we should put this in context. And then also, you know, and maybe this is something Lindsay can do if she's not comfortable with the recommendations piece of it, or I can do kind of frame the process and kind of what the SAG, how it was, what it did. Because I think that's more factual rather than recommendation based.
Sure, sure. I think
So that would be kind of the easier piece to run through quickly.
Sure. I also think, thank you, Lindsay, for volunteering. Thank you for those of you guys who nominated me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Whatever. I also think we should consider Mary and see if Preeti wants to do it. Neither of them are on the call, so I think we should also ask them. I am genuinely happy to step aside. I do not need to do this if you guys are people who want to.
Julia, this is Rachel. Yeah. I'm happy to prepare any graphics or organize this visually. Like I had done that thing with my husband like way back a year ago. Yes. We don't have to use that again, but if that is helpful, that's something that I can add. I don't want to do it. I don't want to present, but I can beforehand I can
skills.
Present this a little bit more, because informational design is very powerful. Yes. And will go a long way. And so I'm happy to help with that.
That would be wonderful. I think then that would add you to the list of the folks who are going to work on the presentation with the speakers. Okay, so I wanted to, anyone else have any other nominations? Do any of the men on the call would you guys like to participate? Does anybody else want to, I mean, I certainly don't want to make it seem like this was supposed to be, does anyone else want to step in? I think a lot of you are very strong presenters. I also, again,
I was just going to say, Julia, if you want to run the, if you want me to assist you in the run-throughs, I'd be happy to do that. I have a background in media and spent about 10 years in broadcasting. So,
please,
please. Tone and inflection and presentations and stuff like that.
You want to also present?
Well, I don't want to, step on anybody's.
There's no toes to be stepped on.
So, I'd be willing to help out any way that you feel would be appropriate.
Great. Add Ed's name to the list, Catherine, please. I know you stopped sharing the slides.
Yeah, sorry. I should have done that earlier. Yes, I did add him. I was using that as my note taking.
Okay. Does anyone else feel like we'll call it down. I know we're like getting to a list of like 1 million people now, like all of us, but just want to, we'll figure out what makes sense in the next one. Okay. Just wanted to start setting expectations. Like not all of us were going to be expected to present to the town committee. Not all of us were going to need to be, there might even be some weeks after the slides are done where, it turns into the smaller group that's taking the ball in the presentation and then would present it back to this group before we give it to the council. Okay. What other open questions do we have based on the logistics that were shared? One thing we wanted to talk about was, Catherine mentioned that the climate resolution is likely to pass. If the climate resolution passes, a lot of the recommendations that Hendry, Johannes, and I worked on came straight from that resolution. Do we then keep it as a priority, or would we remove it because the town council would already actively be working on it and address it in another way? That was like the last big question.
What about substituting education for climate resolution?
Certainly could.
Yeah, I was thinking, particularly if you guys go with, going down to three main things, or do something really concise. If the climate emergency resolution's already passed, you wouldn't want to include that in the three.
I would suggest you acknowledge that they passed it and thank them because this was a big priority of ours, and then go on to our.
That's nice. That's nice, Michael.
All right. Does anyone else have any other burning questions or things that we're not focused on logistics wise?
I just thought of something too, and I don't know exactly how this presentation is going to look, but I know we had the equity and diversity and inclusion group, or anti-racism group, but I mean, this presentation definitely should have environmental justice, as one of the main drivers for this group and these actions, and how I would be like completely humble and say, we come to you as a group of mostly white people, not people of color, and we're aware of how much work and team building or community building, how critical that is. Sorry.
Great point, Kim. Thank you for that. Okay, anyone else have any other lingering logistics questions based on what Catherine presented earlier? Catherine, do you still feel like in our presentation we should give a shout out to the idea that the commissions need to be structured and the council needs to be, even if it's moving forward with Matt Hart?
I don't know. I think we should think some more about that. I thought there was a group of people who wanted to talk more on the side about the effectiveness of commissions or outside groups. I also think, or whether we have too many commissions that are contributing to the silos. And I think these are all good topics. Again, the question is whether this is in the scope of this group or something that the council needs to examine for itself. I've also heard that some commissions are, that the town council doesn't seem to know how to use their commissions, and that a lot of work is done purely in their standing committees, and that they don't refer issues or work out to their commissions and get things back. And so that, so maybe that's a recommendation.
I think that goes in that offline chat that we'll have.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the right, again, I think the idea is we want to give them some positive things they can work on, not kind of.
Yeah, so we'll stay focused on the things that are within our scope, and we'll just kind of keep passing reference to other stuff. I think we've solved a lot of things, or we're getting closer to what we needed to discuss tonight. So I want to thank you guys for your time. Before we go, I do just want to ask if we want to set our next our next group meeting for, guessing early January. And in the meantime, we'll have to do a lot of back and forths and smaller group meetings to figure out what's in the slides. I just don't know with the holidays. I mean, unless you guys have ambitions to try to meet around the 18th, that would be my best recommendation. Otherwise,
Julia, does it make sense to meet again until the final product has been put together by the small team? I mean, my suggestion is, instead of having a larger group meeting, that a product is put together by the smaller team before you call everybody together again.
that would be fine. My only concern about that approach, Jay, is then we miss an important window and then people are just not available. And then I'd rather kind of put a placeholder on people's calendars and we can cancel it if we're not ready, versus the other way around, just because I'm just seeing how people's calendars are just filling up. And then
I guess at this point in the process, I'm just trying to suggest that maybe an email is better than a meeting in some cases.
Absolutely. I agree.
That's what I'm trying to say at this point in our process. For me, my time and my engagement feels like it's best used in a written form offline.
Okay, that's fair. Unless, Jay, did you secretly want to give the presentation?
No, thank you.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Okay, so how do you guys feel about that? no set meetings from here on forward. We'll just kind of go through with emails back and forth, and the smaller group that's working on the presentation will potentially meet together, and then you guys will have to meet with smaller groups to cull down your list and change up your slides so that they're shorter. So we will get together, but just not formally like this until, I'm guessing until really it's probably going to be sometime in January when we're ready to give the presentation back to our group.
Can I make a request really quick that for our small groups, we do, rather than possibly adding on to the previous email thread or just continuing that on, since some people, maybe me, added to lists after that initial time frame, that we again make sure that there was an inclusion of me.
In other words, we need to restart an email list?
Yeah, just to make, or just recheck the list to make sure that we're at, that we have, that the names are all there. Right?
That's a great suggestion, Lindsay. So if your name was left off, I apologize. I don't know how that would have happened. Catherine, do we have a basis that you're making? We'll have to check that. Thank you, Lindsay, for that.
And are we going to set a deadline for submissions of the slides so the people working on the presentations can start to work on it?
I think that's a great idea, Ed. I think that a lot of it, though, is dependent on whether we find out like when this committee meeting is. Like, I think a lot of this is working backwards so that we're not, you know, that we're being realistic about what needs to be done. I getting concerned that if for some reason we get on the February, like I think we'll probably try to target February maybe right now. That committee meeting, but if we wanted to do a committee meeting and then go to the town council before the budget, then we would be targeting January. And I just think January is too aggressive for us, given all the things we just discussed. So I think there should be a deadline of sometime before the holidays. Maybe that's the deadline of the 18th or the 21st or something. I just don't want people to feel like they have to work on this days. Suggestions?
I think the 21st is fair. I mean, that's 2.5 weeks from now.
Should be 3 weeks from now.
3 weeks, I guess, right? Today's December 1st, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Tentative deadline of getting those slides up by December 21st, slides cleaned. And then those of us who are working on the presentation separately would then take most of them, guessing January, to pull that together, present back, and then we could just go for a February meeting. Good.
I think just speaking for the tree subcommittee, we can meet for the 21st. I think the 21st is good.
I also noticed, Jay, are you having a holiday get-together? Was there something you circulated for one of the groups you're a part of? We're going to do the announcements part now, so I feel like let's move into that.
We had, thanks, Julia. We had a really great meeting. It was a meetup that was coordinated with City of Hartford NGOs in the active transportation world. And we had a wonderful night recently at the Weehaw Roasting and Brewing. The mayor showed up and Matt Hart showed up, and we had some muckety-mucks from the active transpo world in the city of Hartford there. And it was a really good start to the discussion, mostly along the lines of trying to create relationships between City of Hartford advocates and Town of West Hartford advocates to build active transportation networks between the two communities, because a lot of times those projects stop at the city line, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a great night. I think we had about 50 people there. Hendry and Ed, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, it was a great one. You know, look to the Bike West Hartford page or else Transport Hartford for updates if y'all are interested in that one. And I'll try to make sure that any future stuff gets to Catherine, because I love the sustainable West Hartford Facebook page that she's adminning.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any announcements they want to share with the group? Things you guys are working on that you have upcoming?
The Connecticut chapter of the Sierra Club is having a lunchtime webinar. It's actually tomorrow. It's part of a second of a 3-part series. It's called wrapped up in plastic, how to unwrap your holidays, and just sort of talking about how plastic waste is just how, all parts of our holidays. So that's at noon tomorrow. I'll send it out to the group, but it's also on the Sustainable West Hartford Facebook page and West Hartford Recycles Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram.
And if I might tag on, Catherine Bruns, you might want to hear this. Today I mailed the big trick or trash box from Morley Elementary School back to the
Awesome.
folks with 6 pounds of highly compressed plastic candy wrappers in it.
Yay!
Completely stuffed to the brim. It was really great. So thank you so much, Catherine Bruns, for making that resource available to us. We used it well.
Yeah, next year I'll try and get it in all the schools. So that's great to know it was a success.
Very cool, you guys. Anyone else?
I have a quick one. And I don't remember if I've announced it yet in this group, but the West Hartford Tree Project, this was a few months ago. We qualified for a matching grant, the Connecticut Sustainability Grant. So we have about $3,000 and we have purchased our trees for giveaway in April. It's going to be 1,200 trees this time, 5 or 6 different species. So everything's looking good for the West Hartford Tree Project. Oh, and Catherine came and talked to my little environmental club at Sedgwick the other day, and that was fun. So thank you, Catherine.
Wonderful. Who else has things that they want to share?
Good job, Ted.
Great.
Can I go real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so the team I'm working with on the climate emergency resolution will probably be presenting to the Public Works Commission I'm guessing this month. I'm hoping this month. But we're trying to in advance of hoping that we get to the town council meeting, we're trying to put together just document as much support as we can. So one of the things we're doing right now is we've got a petition going around, an EE petition that I put in the chat. So if you guys are interested in having a climate emergency resolution passed here in the town, if you could just fill that out, just to let just to document your numbers and that there's a lot of support around this.
Great. Fill out that form.
It doesn't take long.
Afterward, because when the chat closes, it won't be there permanently. So make sure you email that out to everyone afterward.
Sure.
Anyone else have anything to announce? Fun holiday items coming up?
Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Oh yeah, that's right. I just watched my candles burn down. So night 4, yay!
Woo!
Okay, great. Well then, look forward to lots of email back and forths from us. Please pay wild attention to that. And I guess since we're not going to talk again before the holidays as a formal group, I hope you all do, if you're not celebrating Hanukkah right now and you're in the midst of it, like I am, making a bunch of latkes tomorrow for a party this weekend, then I hope you do have a lovely holiday season and take the time you need to relax, refresh, stay safe from COVID. It's getting scary again out there. Get your booster shots, do your things, hug your families. I don't know, do whatever you need to do. Make sure that you give yourself the mental health space, and then applaud yourself truly for being so productive and so supportive of what the town is trying to accomplish. It's a big deal that you've put in this effort and have been such great volunteers. And thanks. That's all.
Good night.
We still recording?
Yes, I'm gonna. Oh, do I need to save this chat? Probably not tonight.
That's why I'm just gonna scroll through and just double check so we don't delete it before it's gone. So I have a quick question. Are we still recording?
I can. Stop recording. Stop recording.
Okay.
Boy, it says we're still live.
It says we're live, but it also said not recording. Oh, we're live. Did you have to broadcast differently? Is that different than recording?
Change streaming layouts. I'm not sure I can stop streaming. Okay, call me after. That sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, you guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.